welcome to the Unbotchable podcast. I'm your host, Bryant Niles. We have a huge episode today. We're going to go match reviews, show reviews, opinions, what I think is going to come next after this huge weekend we had in the world of professional wrestling. We had Night of Champions, we had NXT Battleground, AEW Double or Nothing, within a span of 2 days. It was huge, it was crazy, a lot to unpack. So we're going to start right now. We're going to go in order of the shows. So we're going to start with Night of Champions, which happened Saturday. I'm going to go match by match and give a grade for the match, give some thoughts and opinions. And then by the end, we're going to have 3 different scores for each of these shows. We're going to have how many I predicted correctly from the last show, the total stars that the show, in my opinion, received based on the averages of all the match grades I gave it, and then a total grade, which is going to be a letter grade and then a number grade based on that letter grade. So we'll really be able to get a better sense of what was good, what was bad, what can be improved on, and where we're going from here. The first match of Night of Champions was the World Heavyweight Championship match, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles. I liked it. I thought it kind of got to second gear, never really kicked up to that AJ Styles, John Cena third gear, where everyone was on their feet the whole time, excited, didn't know what was going to happen, who was going to win. It kind of got stalled out in second gear for most of the match, and then when it got to around the finish, it was an expected finish, which led, not that it led to a disappointing match, but it led to that they could have made it a little more suspenseful during the end of the match. That would have been more entertaining in the long run, having something like that happen. Some key points in the match that I liked. I liked the spot when Seth Rollins tweaked his knee on a dive out of the ring, and then immediately AJ Styles went into the calf crusher. That's something you don't see often in wrestling. It's something that I thought, especially in the WWE and the Vince McMahon era, you didn't see a whole lot. You would kind of just see like long-term things. You wouldn't see an injury happen during a match and then the opponent taking advantage of it as often or in as big as a match like this, especially recently. So that was a good thing that I saw from that match. Overall, from that match, I gave it a 4-star match. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a main event caliber match, but it got the job done, and it was better than it could have been. It was pretty good. It was just not getting to third gear kind of slowed it down and made it hit a wall on its potential that it could have reached during that opening match. The next match on the card was Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus. This was a good match. I enjoyed the whole thing. I thought it was entertaining. Stratus did great, which was really the big concern when you went into this match. You went into this match assuming Becky was going to carry the load, do all her things. Trish would have her few spots of memorable moves and whatnot. But it was really an even contest. It was a great match. The big note from this one was Trish and Zoe Stark forming an alliance during that match. For Zoe Stark, I think it's great. I think it gives her a great platform, a great opportunity. It gives her credibility instantly that a Hall of Famer would pick her as someone to work with, so I like that angle of it. But really, the feud is continuing to get better, and I think having Zoe Stark in it will allow for Trish Stratus to not be on TV every week, but for the feud to continue to grow, and we'll get all the way to SummerSlam, and it could be one of the best feuds leading up to SummerSlam. I gave this star another 4-star match. I think the Zoe Stark addition helped boost my rating a little bit. If there wasn't a Zoe Stark end and a new connection made, I probably would have given it around a 3.5. But I think having Trish Stratus and Zoe Stark team up like that is something that will do a lot of good in the long run. So I gave them a 4 star as well. The third match was Mustafa Ali versus Gunter. I liked it. It was expected. A lot of people were saying that it was the best match up until that point. I don't agree. I thought it was good. Ali did a great job selling the whole time, which is incredible. He did a great job. Gunter did everything Gunter usually does. But I just think that it was so predictable outcome that even if Ali kept getting those near falls, you still knew Gunter was going to win. Which kind of took away from the suspense, in my opinion, of what that match had. In that match, I gave them a 3-star. 3-star for me is kind of like a good job. It was a good job. You know, it got the job done. It wasn't great. It wasn't awful. I try to base my ratings in a fair sense. So, like, the last 2 matches were 4 stars. 4 stars are great. Those are good. Those are better than average. 4.5 would be almost perfect, and 5-star obviously would be a perfect. It was great. It's a match you would recommend other people to watch during their spare time. You wouldn't say, hey, go watch Seth Rollins, AJ Styles. It was a 4-star match. You would say, go watch so-and-so. I think there's a few 5-star matches. There's one on this show and a couple others throughout the other shows. But that's, in my opinion, how I look at giving 4 stars. And so this gets a 3-star. It did what it had to do. It wasn't awful. Wasn't great. Just good. Not too bad. So that gets a 3-star. 4 was Bianca Belair versus Asuka. That match ended with, obviously, Asuka winning, becoming the new, Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown. Because, see, I can't even, when I try to say who's the champion, I have to think they're this champion, which means they're on the opposite show. It's starting to confuse me, because even when I'm watching the show, I see Bianca Belair and Asuka in the Raw Women's Championship. And since they were on Raw for so long, I look at it and I go, oh, this is the Raw match because they're both from Raw and they're going for the Raw Championship. But then the draft has them going to SmackDown with the Raw Championship. So it's just a little confusing. Hopefully they do something about it soon. Not the point right now. I thought it was a great match. They both did fantastic. The mist on the hand finish was, I think, perfect. I think a lot of the lead up to the match was Asuka spitting the mist. So a little tweak to that, I think, made it a better finish than if she just would have spat in her face and did whatever she had to do. So I think having that kind of twist and turn on what was the lead up to the match was a fantastic way to end it. I think this benefits Belair a lot. I don't want to say she was running out of juice, but the fans weren't as over with her towards the end of her reign. They still cheered for her. They still enjoyed her. But you can kind of tell there was more cheers for Asuka, more cheers for anyone else she faced. So I think having her lose can set her up for, maybe not a heel run, but she can reinvent herself a little bit and become a new version of Bianca Belair that can either bring fans back to her and another groundswell of support, or it can bring fans to not like her, and then that gets her back up on the card too. Either way, I think it was great for both of them. This one was a 4.5 star in my opinion, which according to those descriptions I gave earlier means that it was almost perfect. I thought it was great. It was a top-notch match. That's what you're looking for when you have a match like that, of that caliber, especially on the mid-card too. So I think it was very impressive, and I think that's why I gave it a 4.5 star, just because it was so good, mid-card. The matches leading up to it were good, and this one was even better. So that was match number 4 in that card. I think it was great. Match 5, Rhea Ripley, Natalya. It was... I don't even know why it was there at this point. I mean, if you're going to have a 70-second loss for Natalya on her birthday, it doesn't make any sense. You'd have to assume it was some kind of a time constraint issue. But even if it was, I feel like there were better things you could have done instead of just throwing on a 70-second mauling for Rhea Ripley to win. I mean, we're going to get into that, the same kind of thing at the AEW show. This one I had less of a problem with because the champion retained, Rhea Ripley. But it did get a worse rating than the other one for AEW. I gave this one a 1 star just because, well, we'll get into that later, why I got this one a 1 star before I get into why the other match was a different rating. But a 1 star match. It was too quick. There was nothing there. You didn't watch it and go, oh, this is something. This is crazy. I mean, even in commentary, they're like, oh, already? This is over already? It just didn't make sense in the gist of things. In my opinion, it didn't really ruin the show. It kind of gets overlooked when you look at the rest of the card and the match that was before it and the match that was after it. And not that you look at it and say, oh, that's okay. It was just a little squash match on a pay-per-view that I paid $10 for or whatever. But it could have been better. Maybe a different opponent would have made it a little nicer. I feel like Natalya shouldn't be losing in 70 seconds at a pay-per-view. Hopefully, we don't get many more of these kind of stinkers on pay-per-views. But overall, it was a 1 star match just because it was so quick. There was really nothing to sink your teeth into. There was nothing to make you go, oh, Rhea Ripley, that was some really good stuff she did. It was just a beatdown. And beatdowns aren't really needle movers when it comes to championship matches. You want quality, you want length, you want a shock factor. I don't think Natalya losing to Rhea Ripley is a shock. I don't even think it's a shock that it was 70 seconds. It just didn't make any sense. It just didn't line up with what they were going for, in my opinion. So that's why that's a 1 star, with Rhea Ripley retaining her, SmackDown Women's Championship for Monday Night Raw. Match 6. Brock Lesnar, Cody Rhodes. Brock Lesnar wins. This one was actually a lot better than I expected it to be. Because, after Backlash, that match was, well, dare I say, it received some backlash. It shouldn't have been the main event. It was lackluster in finish and it didn't hold up to what the build made it look like it was going to be. But this match was much better. With Brock Lesnar winning, he made Cody Rhodes pass out. Why Cody loses this match? I guess it's to make him look like an underdog of sorts, which I don't think he needs, because I think fans are already over with him so much they don't need that kind of stuff too much. But I think it helps him regain that following that he had before the Roman Reigns WrestleMania match. You know, after a roll-up win at Backlash, I think having him get pummeled in a match with Brock Lesnar helps save the rivalry a little bit if they decide to keep going. I like the Cody using his cast as a weapon. You know, it seems like everything that Cody does has a name. I dubbed it the Cody cast. The Cody cast, we have the Cody Cutter. So I think the Cody Vader, might I add. So I think that right when he got those injuries on the Monday Night Raw last week, that was one of the first things I thought of is if they went with the broken arm storyline, whether he gets like one of those big bandage-looking casts or like a normal cast or even like that titanium cast, that would play some kind of role in the match at Night of Champions, and it did, which I was happy to be right on because I thought it would have been fun, and it was kind of pretty fun. So I like that aspect of it. It was a physical match. It was violent. Both of them did great. Both of them brought out their good moves. They did everything they had to do. Brock Lesnar looked better than he did last time at Backlash. They looked very good. Cody looked great. He always does. This match I gave a 4-star rating. You know, it did everything it had to do. Did a little more than that. But it could have been more. Could have done better. But for what I had to do, it was good. 4-star is good. I'm always happy with 4 stars. If you ever had the chance to book a show and your show got all 4 stars, that's a good show. You did good. Because nothing was meh, but nothing was great and make an instant classic. But 4 stars are those solid needle movers. You know, having constant quality throughout a show, throughout multiple shows is something that you look for. And I think that this show had one of the best qualities throughout it. If you take out Natalya and Ripley, which I didn't even think was awful, but I'm not going to give it a 2-star match when it was 70 seconds long. So I think even when you take Ripley and Natalya out of it, and you look at those matches so far, I think the lowest is Gunter and Ali with the 3. It was a great show so far. The crowd was into it. The fans were into it. Everybody was into it. Commentators were into it. So Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes, 4-star. They did great. Okay, and the last one, the third main event of the night, which doesn't make any sense why you have a triple main event. You know, AEW had a double main event, but that made sense because it was back-to-back. This one was, main event 1 opened the show. Main event 2 was second to last. Main event 3 was last. So, I guess you're going to have 3 main events. That's how you want to lay it out. But, still, having a thing called with a triple main event seems like a little much when you have 7 total matches on the card. But it was a Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Roman and Solo. It was a lot better than I expected. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know if I was expecting a Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa dominant match. I didn't know if I was expecting some kind of Uso interference or if I was expecting just KO and Sami to win clean, no issues. Roman and Solo to win clean with no issues. But this match, it delivered on everything that the build had. You know, it kind of snuck in there when you think about it. A lot of the builds and the pre-show hype was around Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. A lot of it was around the World Heavyweight Championship. And then KO and Sami and Roman and Solo kind of just snuck under the radar. Well, they don't sneak under the radar. It's Roman Reigns. But, you know, you compare the other 2 main events. A lot of people are excited for a new champion. A lot of people are excited for Brock and Cody. And then Roman and Solo versus KO and Sammy, we didn't know what to expect, considering it was a tag team match. Roman and Solo haven't really done tag team matches, but it was fantastic. The match was great, but obviously, with first and foremost, KO and Sammy retain. But much like most Bloodline matches, the match is not the end-all be-all when it comes to the show quality and the match quality. The match quality from this comes from what happens after the match, which I include in match ratings. Jimmy and Jay, they accidentally super kick Solo during the match. Or was it during? Sometime they kick Solo in the face. Roman sees that. He doesn't see any of the assistance that they gave, beating down KO and Sammy. He gets in their face, does his angry Roman stuff. Jimmy then kicks his teeth in. But I think that whole segment is probably going to be one of the more historical moments in not just modern history, but wrestling history as a whole. The implosion of the Bloodline it's big stuff. Some key things that I saw. Well, first off, that it was very unexpected when you think of how people expected the Bloodline to collapse. A lot of it was Jay, a lot of Solo, some Paul Heyman sprinkled in there. Jimmy was the one that you didn't expect much from when it comes to defying the tribal chief. You didn't expect Jimmy to be the one to put an end to everything. I mean, obviously there was some build-up over the past couple of weeks of Jimmy not being happy, Jimmy not feeling respected with Solo and Roman going for the tag titles. He felt like he should have went for him with Jay. He kicks Roman in the face, and then he tells Jay that's just them now. It's like, I don't know if they'll be out of the bloodline, start their own bloodline. That's the big thing when it comes to the bloodline main event. What's next? What's going to come next? Where do we go from here? So that's going to be big. Maybe we'll get some information on Raw. Probably not. I'm sure if Paul Heyman's there, because he's been there the past few weeks, we'll get some kind of insight. But it'll more than likely be on SmackDown with the Roman Reigns, his 1000th day ceremony in which the Usos were invited to. I would think that it leads to Jimmy versus Roman, probably at Money in the Bank. And then what he does at SummerSlam, I got no idea. It could be anything. Because I don't think they would do Solo versus Roman that quick. But you'd have to think it's Jimmy versus Roman at Money in the Bank. But the big thing, besides the implosion, besides all that kind of stuff, is that Jay, he looked like he was still loyal to Roman throughout that whole time. He questioned his brother. He didn't understand it. He wanted to help Roman, but didn't because he was with his brother, and his brother didn't want to. He was the one that kicked him in the face, so he didn't want to jeopardize his brother, and all those little nuances during that few minutes really makes it more of an interesting story moving forward. If it was just the Usos both deciding to go against Roman, then it's a little less intriguing than if it's only one Uso going against Roman. Because now you don't know how the Usos are going to interact. You don't know how Solo and the Usos are going to interact. You don't know how Jay and Solo and Paul are going to interact. Because it seems like they were all on the same page for the most part. You don't know how Jimmy, Solo, and whoever is going to interact. So that's a lot of things that we're going to have to keep an eye on, watch for. This got a 5 stars. It was great. Match was great. After the match was great. It was a classic. This is going to be one that you check back on, like with a lot of Bloodline matches, you check back on. I'm sure one day they'll have those, on Peacock, they have those best of WWE shows. I'm sure they'll have one with all the Bloodline matches, and whether it culminates with this match or whether it culminates with a Roman losing to Jimmy or Jay or Solo or whatever they do, this is going to be on there. It's that big of a match. It's that important of a match. You know, when you look at the matches of this decade, I'm sure that'll be one of the ones on there. I'm sure Sammy and Reigns will be on there, and KO and Reigns from Royal Rumble. I mean, all these matches are classic matches, all 5-star matches, and each of them is going to be pivotal in telling the story leading into whether it be next year's WrestleMania or SummerSlam or whatever they decide to do. So that match got a 5-star with KO and Sammy retaining. It was awesome, great time. One of the more exciting main events I've seen. I mean, a lot of main events are exciting. I think the last really exciting main event was Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns. And obviously they're both in this match too. So if you didn't think Sami Zayn was the main eventer, you're very wrong. Now, I want to go into those 3 categories I told you about. So, the prediction, the total stars, and the total grade. So for the predictions, I got 4 out of 7 right. Not bad. You always want to aim for 50%. If you can get 50%, you're always doing something right. So around 50%, good. Now the total star based on all the matches, which includes the Ripley Natalya squash match, 3.6 stars. I wish that Ripley Natalya match wasn't there, because even if it was a 3-star, it would have boosted the star rating of the show well past 4. But, you know, it happens. Now for a total grade, I broke it up into 3 different categories. I have it for crowd, action, quality, and surprises. Now for crowd, I gave Night of Champions an A at a 93. For action, which when I'm talking about action, I'm talking about there's always something going on that you're interested in, like, I guess pace is a good way to put it. You're not lulled out in the middle of the show. So for action, I gave it a B at an 82. For match quality, which is obviously just how good matches are and overall like that, a B+ at an 88. And with surprises, which obviously can be anything from an upset victory, someone returning, those kind of things, I gave it an A+. The Jimmy turning on Roman was a majority of why it was an A+. But I think the Trish and Zoe Stark combination also, it made me want to give it a 99 as my first one for these 3 shows. This show probably, I think it had the most surprises out of all the shows. There was always something you can expect, or not expect, but something you didn't expect. So I think that this show deserved the 99 surprises, which gives the final show grade a total of 90.5, which is an A. An A show. It was a great show. The match ratings were a little skewed by the Ripley Natalya match, but just to go over it again, for predictions, 4 out of 7. The total stars, 3.6 stars. And the grade, a 90.5, which equals out to an A. Night of Champions was a great show. I like how they're going different places, doing different things. You know, I'm sure they're going to have some big shows lined up for the fall in different places throughout the world. I'm hoping for Australia. I think that would be great with all the talent they just called up from Australia. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that. I think that would be blockbuster if they did that. But overall, Night of Champions was great. I was very impressed. Now we're going to move to NXT Battleground before Double or Nothing. Remember, these shows ran simultaneously up until, I believe, Jade Cargill, her match, or matches, which we'll get into. So it ran, about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, head to head. The first match was Wesley, Joe Gacy, Tyler Bate. It was high speed. It was everything you want in a match like that. When you have a triple threat match and later when you have a fatal four-way match, you don't want the suspense to be taken away. You don't want people to get bored from watching a boring one-on-one match and then here comes a third guy, he takes out one guy, and then it's back to a one-on-one match. I think this match did a great job of highlighting each three's specialty. Wesley, he can fly, he can flip, he can do everything you need. Tyler Bate can do anything, so. And Joe Gacy, he's stronger, but he's also very agile. I think it did a great job showing all those. To start off the show, NXT Battleground got a 4.5 stars from that match, in my opinion. As I'm sitting there watching the match, I'm looking at Wesley, seeing what he's able to do. I just thought it was, we went back to, he was a tag team competitor. And then he had the year of last year, his partner gets released and he's trying to find his footing and doesn't really know what he's doing, doesn't know where he's going. And it's just incredible how great he's transitioned into being a singles competitor, which is not something everyone is really able to do in this industry. You have to know who you are as an athlete and as a person, as a character, and be able to, really put yourself out there and really do what you have to do. And not only that, then you have to go in the ring and you have to perform by yourself. No one to lean on. Besides your opponent, obviously. But, there's no one, you can't tag anybody in, you have to do it all yourself. And I think he's done an incredible job making that transition into a singles competitor. Obviously, he's been doing great with the North American Championship. He retains. I was hoping Gacy would win just to throw a wrench into NXT, because I think that would be a little nuts having Joe Gacy running around as a champion. But nonetheless, Wesley retains 4.5 stars. Great way to kick off the show. Next, we had Dragon Lee versus Noam Dar for the Heritage Cup. Now, I actually really liked the match. I liked the format. I liked that they had a limited amount of time to get a win. So the whole time the clock's ticking down, they're losing seconds, they're losing precious time to make a pinfall, submission. So the whole time it's very fast paced. Very fast. Especially because it's Dragon Lee and Dar too. They're very fast competitors. So it was a very quick match. Well, not quick as in time, but quick as in speed. They're fast. Which I loved. I thought that was great. Jakara Jackson, Lash Legend, helped Noam Dar retain. I think it was round 5, 2-1. The finish, I liked it. I want to see where it goes. It ended with Noam Dar, Jackson, Legend, and then Oro Mensah, who came out as a corner man for Noam Dar. Ended with them all. They had a backstage moment, talking, doing an interview. I'd like to see where it goes from there, obviously. It's interesting, to say the least. But I think it was a good match. It was a 3-star match, just because you can only do so much in such a limited amount of time. especially with all the breaks and everything like that. There were obviously some great moments during that match. Noam Dar hit a power bomb from the apron to the floor, catching Dragon Lee off the ropes, which was insane, obviously. But when it comes to matches and all that kind of stuff, a match like that is hard to really get a tip-top 5-star match rating just because the rounds are short, so you never really get into another gear. You're kind of always, you're either in like gear 1 for like the first 2 rounds, and then gear 2 for the second 2, and then if you get to gear 3, I mean, how do you get to gear 3 when you can barely get to gear 2 sometimes? Because those matches are so quick. So I gave it a 3-star. Noam Dar retains his Heritage Cup. I really hope they do some more of this. I think it would be great on just like a weekly episode of NXT too. I think it would give some great opportunities. I hope Nathan Frazier is next. I think he's box office. So I think having him in one of these matches would be great. So that was that match. Probably the match of the night, in my opinion, was Ilya Dragunov Dijak. It was awesome. It was, at the same time, actually, not at the same time. Just before this was Cole versus Jericho, which was an unsanctioned match. This was an incredible, physical, brutal showing from the two of them. Like, there were just things in there you watched, and you got hurt just by watching it. It was very, very violent. But not violent as in thumbtacks in the mouth, exploding boots. It was violent as in he just got his head driven in steel steps. He just threw his body through a table to hit Dijak. He just threw steel steps at this guy's head. Like, it's that kind of violence. Which, it's like that Gunter Sheamus violence, where it's hard-hitting. You don't want to watch because everything looks so painful, but you can't look away. This match got a 5-star match. Highly, highly recommend watching it. It was incredible. Probably one of my favorite matches of the night. Total. Period. Regardless of show. Probably my favorite match of the night. Just because when you look at it, no one really expected it to be as great as it was. But it was incredible stuff. So I gave that a 5-star match. Ilya Dragunov was the last man standing. The fourth match on the card were the Creeds and Gallus. Tag Team Championship match. Gallus retains. The Creeds were absolutely great. They're always great. But, there was that spot where Julius, he did like 7 kip-ups, like 6 suplexes, standing shooting star. He just did everything like all in like a minute's time. And it was just those kind of things that when you look at the Creeds, it shows why they are clearly going to be one of the more important tag teams going forward in the whole wrestling world, not just WWE, and the entire world of wrestling. This is going to be a team that people model themselves after going forward. Gallus, they did great. They always do great. You have to always expect great things from Gallus because that's what they do. This match ended with an Ava Rain distraction. She attacks Ivy Nile, causes the Creeds to get distracted. Gallus wins. Not a bad finish. I just don't know where it's going to go. I'm just hoping it's not another dyad match for a title or something. Because that doesn't make much sense at this point. The Creeds versus the dyad will be good if they decide to go with that. Or if it's just an Ava versus Ivy Nile, I think that's a really good opportunity for her to have her first singles match and really get out there and get on TV more, get in the ring. So I gave it a 3.5 star. You know, it was better than good. Not great, not the best. But it was still a very good match. I still very much enjoyed liking it, or watching it. 5 was Stratton and Valkyria for the NXT Women's title. Stratton becomes a new NXT Women's Champion, which was what I was hoping for after they absolutely ruined the tournament by not making it Cora Jade versus Roxanne Perez. But, you know, you get what you get. And I think Stratton's going to be a great champion. Looking forward to it. There was a lot of drama and suspense in that match towards the end. You know, a lot of great kickouts, a lot of great moves. Obviously, they both did great in the ring. This match was the ending of the tournament, like it was going to be the final. I wasn't concerned that it was going to be a bad match or anything. I kind of knew that, you know, Valkyria, she's good. I don't have to worry about her. Stratton is good. It was just that could they perform at a main event level in such a big spot on a premium live event? And they did. That's why this match got a 4.5 star rating. I was very impressed. You know, we'll have to see where this reign goes from here. Who's the first challenger? All that kind of stuff. But I think it was a great start. You know, you didn't want to go out there and have a new champion crowned and it be a boring match. Not too exciting. You know, you wanted something that was, you know, upbeat, high flying, a lot of action. And that's what it was. It was very fast paced, which was something I enjoyed. So that's why that gets a 4.5 star. The main event, Braun versus Mello. Mello retains. I liked the match. I don't think it was match of the night. I gave it a 4-star rating. You know, there are obviously some great spots that you look in that match and you see. I just think that Mello was the obvious winner because I don't think they'd put the title on him just for him to lose to Braun. And then having Braun lose means that Braun loses, which defeats the whole purpose of him being an unstoppable force because he was just stopped. So we have to see what's next for them. What's next for Braun? Where does he go next? What does he do? But, you know, one of the key things I looked at when I saw this match was that it looked like they could have one of the next great decade-long rivalries. Then you have your Randy Orton, John Cena's. You have your Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. They're friends or not friends. They're friends or not friends. Braun and Mello. I feel like they're going to be the next decade-long feud where you can put it on a match from, you know, 2023 and then a match in 2034, and they're still having a rivalry throughout that whole time. So, you know, so I'm very excited when it comes to that. That was my biggest takeaway from really that match. They have great chemistry, they're great, they're superstars, their characters are great. Heel Braun is great. Face Mello is great. Yeah, you can't really complain much when it comes to that. So I give it a 4-star. Not too bad. Pretty good. Very impressed. So now we're going to go into the show grades. For the predictions, I got 3 out of 6. Not that bad. 50%. I'll take it. Now for the total stars for the match, which was shocking when I'm doing this and looking at it and determining star ratings. Like, I'm not trying to fix star ratings, obviously. So, I'm just kind of doing it organically, and then, taking some time after each match and saying, well, do I really think it was that rating? Some of them I did change. Like, Ali and Gunter went back and forth with 3.5 and 3 for a while. Rollins and Styles went back and forth with 4.5 and 4. Obviously ended on 4 and 3 for those. But when it comes to this show, I don't think I really changed any of my initial decisions much at all. I think every single one is the one that I looked at, I watched it, I said, alright, that's my pick. I think that's what I think of it. And that's what I stuck with. So this total star match, or total star rating for this show of NXT Battleground, I had a 4-star show. I was very impressed. Especially running against AEW at the same exact time. So obviously there might have been some less eyes on the product than what there normally would be. But it was a great show. Now for the show grade. The crowd for NXT, I gave it a B at an 81. The action, an A at 94. Quality, an A+. Or is that? Nope, just an A. Just an A at 92. And surprises, a C at 73. There weren't really any surprises, unless you want to count Noam Dar's new group, but I wouldn't say that's why it was a 73, because it didn't really move the needle. 70 is like a base for this kind of thing. A C. Anything below is not good. Anything above is good. And, that's why I have that, like a 70 to 74 is in that C category. Boosted up to a 73. And when I do the math, NXT Battleground got a total of 85%, which is a B+. Great show. I was very impressed, especially running against AEW at the same time. It was very unexpected, honestly. I'm going to get into it in a little bit in a second, as a lot of these matches went head-to-head with AEW. So let's just jump right into AEW. The first match was the Blackjack Battle Royal. I don't like the format they do for these things. Having people not getting in the ring, people in the ring, Swerve still standing on the ramp. It just makes it a little confusing when you're trying to do everything. I came up with one idea, that if you wanted to do something like a battle royal, do it like a one-on-one battle royal. You have one person in the ring, it's their ring, you throw them out, it's your ring. The other person comes down, they throw you out, it's their ring now. Do that for like 15 people. Give it a cool name, I don't know. Like King of the Hill, King of the Mat, I don't know. But something like that, I feel like would have been much more entertaining than this hodgepodge of tag teams and a few single stars and Orange Cassidy just jumping and flipping and throwing people. The finish with Orange and Swerve was great. But what I didn't understand was why Keith Lee and Jay White just didn't get close to the Final Four. I mean, they were obviously, besides Orange Cassidy, probably the biggest names in that match. But I feel like the match for them was more of a storyline progressor than it was an actual title match. Orange Cassidy retains the International Championship again. His reign has been incredible. I'm very ecstatic that he's finally getting this recognition. The match, though, was a 3.5 star rating, which compared to NXT, they opened with a 4.5. So already AEW is down a whole point against NXT. Second match was Jericho Cole. It was one of the hardest things I've seen in a while. It was so hard to, want to watch, but also look at NXT, see the Heritage Cup going on, and you're like, oh, this is more exciting. This is a lot better. Adam Cole wins. The crowd was not into it. They did not care. In my opinion, the biggest mistake was having the JAS come out with Jericho and then be run off immediately. There was no suspense. There was no, oh, the JAS is going to come. They're going to come and they're going to save Jericho, and then someone's going to come down and help Cole, and then it's going to be a big thing. There was none of that. It was all, everybody's gone. It's Cole and Jericho. They're going to hit each other with some chains and do something, and good for Cole for winning, but I mean, it was just rough. I gave it a 3-star, which ironically is the same for the Dragon Lee Noam Dar Heritage Cup match, which occurred at the same time. But I feel like the Dragon Lee Noam Dar 3-star is much stronger than the Adam Cole Chris Jericho 3-star. The reasons for 3 stars are completely different. The reasons for Dragon Lee Noam Dar was that, it's hard to really get up that momentum, get that fan backing when you're stopping every, 3 minutes. Where Cole and Jericho was just, there was no fan backing, They just didn't get it going. They didn't go through enough stop signs to make the fans overly interested and overly excited about it. So their 3-star rating has nothing to do with the match, and all of that has to do with it just wasn't great. It just wasn't what we would have expected from someone like Chris Jericho or Adam Cole. So they got a 3-star. FDR versus Double J, Jeff Jarrett, and Jay Lethal, which I guess they should call them like Triple J. I feel like that would be cool. Jeff Jarrett and Jay. But I think it was a good match. It wasn't bad. The Karen Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett, they had their guitar spots, which really was the first time the crowd actually started to care about the show. The crowd was almost silent that whole time, with a few jolts of excitement. But that was one of the first times the crowd actually started to get into it. FTR retains their tag titles. Mark Briscoe was the special guest referee. It was a great match. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I feel like there were some lull times where it wasn't the most exciting thing. Especially when you turn over to NXT and you see Ilya Dragunov and Dijak throwing the kitchen sink at each other. So I think it was good. It was great to a degree. 3.5 star was my settling point on. It wasn't a 4-star. It wasn't a 3-star. It has to be 3.5 star because that's all that's left. I'm not gonna do like a 3.2. I go on 0.5s. So 3.5 star. It was good. Match number 4, Wardlow and Christian. This match I was excited for just because I feel like the ladder matches suit Wardlow very well. Christian was not the right opponent, though. Not that Christian is bad, but, when you have an older wrestler like that, there's only so much he can do, in the ring, so many high-flying stunts. He's not like the Hardys where they just do it all the time and no one bats an eye. Christian Cage doesn't really jump off high things or do crazy stuff like that all that often, if ever. So I feel like there was a very good chance for Wardlow to show off, which he did, in my opinion. It was the match of the night of the undercard, which was up until MJF and the Pillars match. I like the innovation Wardlow was doing, that ladder spot where he jumped on the ladder and the ladder broke and everyone fell. I mean, obviously that wasn't supposed to happen, but you can just see the potential in that that kind of spot. You can see he did what do you do, a swanton off the ladder. So those kind of things you look for when you're looking at like ladder matches. You want those big ladder-based jumping spots, which you got in this match. I gave it a 4-star. I went back and forth with 4 and 4.5, and I feel like there was just something missing with the Christian Cage side of it. Because, a lot of it was Wardlow. There was something missing with the Christian Cage part, so maybe go back down to 4. So it was a 4-star match. Wardlow retains his TNT Championship. Arn bit off Luchasaurus' finger. I don't know why. I don't even know what to say. He just bit a guy's finger. Looked like who bites a finger? But Wardlow retains TNT Championship. I was very, very impressed by him in particular. Next is the Jamie Hayter, Tony Storm debacle. I understand that Jamie Hayter was hurt, and that's probably why it was a short match. But when it comes to a championship match like that, it does more harm than good to have the champion lose on such a short match like that. Like if Rhea Ripley would have won against Natalya beat her senseless, 1 in 70 seconds, you'd be like, oh, okay. It's Rhea Ripley getting absolutely demolished. But it's something you didn't really expect or anything. When it comes to Jamie Hayter and Tony Storm, they were hyping how great the match was going to be. They said, oh, last time they had a match, it was the best thing you've ever seen. It was the best match on the card. It was the best thing. It was the best thing. And then they come out with this, which was outcast distractions. They bring out Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida, I guess, to do something. And then it just ends, and Tony Storm's the new AEW Women's Champion. Now, I gave this match a higher rating than Natalya and Ripley, at 1.5 stars, just because I feel like they did a little more effort trying to make it good. They could have just had the CM Punk John Moxley match that was just the most hyped thing you've seen for an episode of Dynamite, and then it ends in like 12 seconds. So I feel like they definitely do better than that. But I would have rather she just relinquished. I feel like if you're going to injure or go out and wrestle injured, you're doing a disservice kind of to the championship. You're giving a championship a dud match that it doesn't really need. It doesn't need to be a dud match. It can be just relinquished and you have a tournament or something, or you pick 10 people, you go, here, ladder match, go. And that's it. Like, you don't have to have a match like that when the champion's injured. It just diminishes the value of the title a great amount. Hopefully Tony Storm's able to rebound from this. Hopefully a title defense relatively soon, like even on this Wednesday, a title defense that would clear up a lot of this issue. But 1.5 stars for that match. I wish it would have been better. They hyped it up too much, and it was a big letdown. And match number 6 was House of Black versus The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. I don't know if The Acclaimed should have been and Billy Gunn should have been the choice. I feel like if you're going to have an open challenge of sorts, it needs to be something really out of the box. Like you went to Japan and you brought over the New Bullet Club and you said, this is your trio you're facing. Went over to Impact and brought over a trio. Something out of the box that fans would be like, oh, I did not expect to see these guys here today. The Acclaimed are probably one of the people you expected to see in this kind of match. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. but for no build up at all and just kind of throwing it on the card, it was good. It was not too bad. I gave it 3.5 stars just for that reason. I wasn't blown away, but I wasn't upset. So, 3.5 stars. You'll take it when it's an open challenge match that has no real build up. The 3.5 stars for the House of Black when they retained their Trios Championships. Next match is when things actually start to pick up. It took 7 matches in before the crowd and the atmosphere in the building started to really get going. You had Taya Valkyrie versus Jade Cargill. It was an okay, not great match. I don't think having Taya lose twice to Jade Cargill is a great idea. But, Jade Cargill did great, as always. Taya did good. It was a great match from both of them. And then you have the Statlander return, wins the TBS Championship, dethrones Jade Cargill's reign of terror on the TBS Championship. It was a big surprise that they had the Statlander return there. I guess what they were thinking is, at least if this is what I would do. If you wanted to get Jade Cargill to 60, they just give her a match on the pay-per-view. Give her a match after that, and then she loses right away. There's no chance to celebrate. 60-1, done. That's that. But I think it was interesting. I gave the Valkyrie Cargill match a 3-star. The Statlander Cargill match, because of the excitement and the crowd was so into it and it was a great moment, I gave it a 4-star. Put them together, boom, boom, 3.5 stars. Which, considering it went up instead of down, that's a good progression for 2 matches back to back. Now we start to get into main events. MJF, Jungle Boy, Darby, and Sammy. It was incredible. It was very fast paced. There were some great moments. I love that Canadian Destroyer sequence. It's one of my favorite moves. I could watch it all day. Just Canadian Destroyers back to back to back to back. I thought it was great. Sammy had the Spanish fly to the floor. I mean, that was insane. The entrances were great. MJF had his triple eye poke moment where he just poked them all in the eye, back to back to back. That was great. The match lived up to the hype, surpassed the hype. It was some fantastic stuff. I was very impressed by all of them. They're all clearly main event talent now. So for the 4 Pillars match, I give it a 5 stars. When the matches are good, you don't have as much to say about them because, everything you need to say is just you watch the match and that's it. So that would obviously be one that I recommend watching. I recommend it. It was fantastic stuff. The better the match, the less critique, the less, I guess, time we need to spend on it, because it's just understood that it was great. MJF retaining was the right call. I said that since they announced the match, and even well before that. Obviously there are people that wanted Jungle Boy or Darby or Sammy to win. I feel like Darby was the main base out of the other 3 that people wanted to win. I was always for MJF winning. It does a lot more good going down the long haul to have MJF as champion. So that's what I have there. 5-star match. MJF retains. Great stuff. The last match of the night was the Elite versus the Blackpool Combat Club in the Canadian Arena. Similarly to the last match, there was not a lot to say because it was just so great. The music's playing for the first 10 minutes. Then they super kick the singer. They do whatever they're doing. They run around the stadium. I feel like it was a little ring centered this time compared to other times when they're in the backstage a lot more often, and Eddie Kingston's running around with gas cans and setting people ablaze. I mean, Matt Jackson's his spots were insane. I mean, he kicked someone in the face with an exploding shoe. Then they take off his shoe and make him step in thumbtacks. And then they decide maybe he's hungry and they give him some thumbtacks to eat. So, I mean, he had a rough night. It was like a rough, 2 minutes. They just attacked this guy. But I thought it was great. Blackpool Combat Club wins. Takeshita, he joins the Blackpool Combat Club. It was something I was thinking of because, you just haven't seen him in a while. So I'm sure it'll be something along the lines of, they chose Hangman over me and that kind of left out vibe of a storyline. Or it could be a Don Callis trying to get back at Kenny Omega and he says, this is the kid I want to do it with. You never know. But it was a 5-star match again. Back-to-back 5 stars is always something you look for, especially on a show like this where there weren't many other highlights. So the last 2 matches were great. Now to get into the final topics. So for this show, I was only able to predict 7 of the matches because I didn't know who the House of Black were really facing. And the Blackjack Battle Royal, it's a Blackjack Battle Royal, and when I did my predictions, they were not announced who was in it. So, I mean, I picked Orange Cassidy, but I don't think I should have included it because I didn't really know who else was in there. It might have changed my prediction. This show I did much better than most other shows. I got 5 out of 7 right. The total stars out of all of this, there was 3.6 stars of all the matches. And the total grade for Double or Nothing, the crowd got a C. It's at a 72. The crowd did not care much. Took a lot to get them to care. It took anarchy to get them to care, which was disappointing because normally their crowds are great, but they were not great yesterday. The action was a B at an 84. The quality was a B+ at an 86. And surprises were A at a 91, giving the show a total grade of an 83.25, ending up at a B. Now, taking all this into account, that means, in terms of total grade, Night of Champions at 90.5 was the best show of the weekend, followed by NXT Battleground, which is a B+ at 85, ending with a B for AEW Double or Nothing at an 83.25. NXT Battleground and AEW Double or Nothing going head-to-head. The clear winner for those 2 hours or whatever was NXT Battleground, which went around, it was around 7 matches for AEW to get through at the same time as NXT Battleground. It's pretty much the whole show. NXT Battleground beat AEW Double or Nothing. No one expected it. No one had it on their bingo card. It was very unexpected. It was a great weekend, though. It was a great weekend of wrestling. We have Monday Night Raw coming up, NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown. We're 1 week closer to AEW Collision. Very exciting. One last time, Night of Champions, A at 90.5%. NXT Battleground, B+, 85%. AEW Double or Nothing, the last on the list, B, 83.25%. And that is going to do it for us here on the Unbotchable podcast. It was a long episode today. I hope you all enjoy. Let me know what you think of my grades, my reasonings, everything you think of. Let me know on Twitter, at Unbotchable. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Unbotchable. Now you can listen on Spotify also. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, search Unbotchable, search Brian Niles. You'll find it. Thank you all very much for listening. Make sure you stop by next week. We'll see all the backlash, all the future build-up leading towards some big events. Forbidden Door coming up soon, Money in the Bank, the SummerSlam, the Great American Bash coming for NXT very soon as well. Thank you all for listening, and as always, stay off the top rope.